So essentially, I look at the whole Panama Papers in three specific aspects. One is what was the legal position as far as investment overseas by resident individuals is concerned. Then I'll move on to what were the wrongdoings by several individuals who set up offshore entities. And the last aspect is what is the way forward, what do they have, what does the government or the regulators have to do about it. Let's look at the first aspect of this whole Panama leaks or Panama Papers. So in Panama Papers, what we have is hundreds of individuals in India and thousands of individuals across the world have set up offshore entities. So these offshore entities have been set up at various tax havens. It could be British Virgin Islands, it could be Seychelles, it could be Panama, it could be Niue, it could be Samoa and several others. So what was the legal position in India? Were Indian resident individuals allowed to set up companies abroad? For a very long time, we didn't allow convertibility of the rupee. That is, that you can't convert the rupee into dollars and take them outside. So it was only in February 2004 that for the first time, Reserve Bank of India announced a scheme called the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, where they allowed every resident individual to take $25,000 outside India. So they could use it for a variety of purposes. It could be for medical treatment, it could be for children education, it could be for gifting money, it could be donations, it could be anything. So essentially the position then of the RBI was, this $25,000, you take it out, you could dump it also. You can dump it into the valley. So there was no issue at all. So this $25,000 limit was gradually raised over a period of time, and today it is about $250,000 every year. So every year a resident individual can take $250,000 legally outside India for whatever purposes. So the purposes which the RBI specified in the beginning way back in 2004 also included buying of shares. So individuals are also allowed to make portfolio investment. But the RBI kept silent or kept quiet or did not specifically allow resident individuals to set up entities abroad. So they could not go and incorporate a company in one of the tax havens. But the market took it in a different way. Market said that I can invest in shares, so let me go and incorporate a company. But in 2007-8, RBI again met lots of people and said that you can't do this. Then, since there was confusion in the market, RBI actually came out with a written, frequently answered questions on September 17, 2010 and said that resident individuals cannot set up companies abroad. So that was a call that RBI took after a lot of internal discussion and debate that you can't set up companies abroad. But then many individuals sought to take a different view when chartered accountants gave them a hyper technical interpretation of this aspect and said that yes, you cannot set up or incorporate companies abroad, but you can take over an existing company. So there are many players in the overseas market. There are at least Mossack Fonseca is one of the 4 big or 5 big giant incorporators which works like a factory. They keep on registering companies, they churn out companies, and anybody can come to them, buy a company and then acquire shares in it. So essentially it was not really buying of shares into these companies. They were basically offering companies off the shelf to resident individuals. So which to RBI was a clear no. RBI said that you can't incorporate or set up a company to suggest that you can't have a company abroad. But then many individuals went ahead and did that. Finally, after further elaborate discussions within the regulatory framework and with many market intermediaries, RBI allowed in 2013 August another window which is called the Overseas Direct Investment Window, which is different from the Liberalized Remittance Scheme which was announced in 2004. So under ODI, a resident individual could go and set up a 100% subsidiary or could also invest in a joint venture company. So that is the legal position as far as setting up of offshore entities concerned. So we have had a very, since 2004 till 2015 and or till 2016, a framework of law under the Foreign Exchange Management Act, which till now says that people who had incorporated companies or set up companies till August 2013, they were in violation of the FEMA guidelines or FEMA regulations. Even in the leaks, we have found that people have incorporated companies even ahead of 2000, even before 2004. So essentially, those are clear outliers. You can't, when you can't take money out, how can you set up an entity abroad? So that was one different category. In our own investigation, in our own stories of many corporate entities or doyens of the corporate sector, we have found that people have incorporated companies or bought companies off the shelf from Mossack Fonseca and acquired shares over a period of time in bits and pieces using funds which they have in their foreign accounts. The basic issue with any tax haven or an offshore entity is the layers of secrecy and the avenues for tax saving, which many people, corporates call it as tax planning, but in today's governance parlance across the world amongst G20 countries, it is seen as tax avoidance. So you have set up these offshore entities to avoid tax, evade tax. You can call it, say, tax planning, but the regulators or the income tax departments or authorities across the world do not necessarily look at it as, say, tax planning. They look at it as tax avoidance. And second is the secrecy. So you don't really get to know who the owner is. So you have built-in layers of secrecy where the register of members, that is the shareholders or directors in these offshore entities, have no link with the individual who owns these entities. So a corporate is appointed as a director, a corporate which is Mossack Fonseca also provides a natural person from its own ranks to be a shareholder in another company. So they have nominee shareholders, they have nominee directors. So the secrecy which is involved, the Panama Papers actually breaks the secrecy. It outs the entire beneficial ownership or the ownership pattern which comes across in these offshore entities. The last bit is, of course, what next? Now it is for the Reserve Bank of India and the Income Tax Department to take it forward, whether or the special investigation team which has been set up in 2014 to take note of this entire offshore entity business, which is being seen world over as a means of evading tax. It is for the government, that is the Income Tax Department, the SIT setup and the Reserve Bank of India to bring more clarity into the entire offshore entity business and take stock of the findings of this, not just our investigation, but also of what has happened in India over the last 16 years.